We are in the midst of Parshat Vayera, even though the band marches on in terms of the Parshiot HaShavua, but our goal here is not to cover breadth in terms of Parshat Shavua as much as to hopefully explore some of the depth of our Parshiot and particularly of Parshat Vayera for this year. Again, if you could just mute yourself. There you go. Let's mute a couple more people who neglected to do so. And let's get underway. There are so many byways and different off-ramps to different aspects of the Parsha here, of the section that we're up to, chapter 18, Pasuk 9, chapter 18, Parak Yudchet, Pasuk Tet. Avram Avinu has given the food to the people. He's standing over them. I did track down, by the way, at least the hint, the idea that I closed with last time. I wasn't sure who said it. I knew I'd given a drasha about it, but I came across it over Shabbos looking at the Parsha, and I believe it was Rav Soloveitchik who pointed out that this idea of the host standing over those who sit before him is the idea of Avraham Avinu standing with the guests, and is also hinted at in the Bikur Cholim at the beginning of the Parsha, where Hashem tells Avraham, comes to see Avraham, and Avraham is seated, as opposed to all the other times when Avraham Avinu is falling down, Vayipol Panav, where he's in some kind of state of being, I don't know what the word is, semi-conscious, some such thing. Here he's awake. He's looking out at the day, at the horizon, from his perch in Elonei Mamre, today the vicinity of Hebron. And lo and behold, he sees the people, etc. Then that's the transition from Bikur Cholim into Achmasat Orchim. Here, when we come to this section now, we come to the table talk, the conversation of these mysterious three visitors. Now, we're operating on multiple tracks about these visitors. According to one view in the Medrash, the people who come are known to Avram Avinu to be Malachim. According to others, it's not clear that Avram Avinu ever figures out while they're there that they're actually Malachim. Rashi actually is not entirely clear about whether Avram Avinu knows what's happening or not. The fact that they're Malachim to Rashi is obvious, but the idea that Avram is aware of it is not as obvious. And it says that they ate, the last word in Pasuk Chet. So Rashi points out, Nir'u kemosh achlu. It seemed as if they were eating, but they weren't actually eating because Malachim don't eat physical food. So, right, in my I have a second grade, third grade teacher describing it, they were hiding it in their shirt or they're putting it in their pocket as they pretended to eat, because obviously they weren't, right? Something like that. But it's interesting, Rashi's comment here, Mikan Shliyashana Adam Min HaMinhag. Here we learn that when you're in Avram's tent, you do as Avraham. Later on, the Romans, Lahavdol, Elfafe Avdolot, would co-opt such a sentence about Rome. When in Rome, do as Romans, Lo Aleinu. But here we learned that there is an idea of a certain etiquette or protocol to not to be changing from the minhag of the place where you come to. This is the notion of minhag hamakom. The minhag hamakom is that you eat. They don't normally eat. That's not our diet. Okay, they ate. What could they do? They realized they were in Avram Avinu's house. They had to appear as if they were eating. We see so many different aspects of Jewish values and ethics that we're learning straight from this little story, these two little episodes about Bikur Cholim we learn, and about Achnasat Orchim we learn. We learned last time, we talked about the chinuch lemitzvot of Yishmael. We talked about the idea that Avraham could have asked someone else to take care of everything, but rather he himself wants to be engaged in bringing the food in order to personally be involved in the mitzvah. Further, the idea that if you look at initially when he speaks to them, he gives them an indication, you're going to take a little bit of water, you're going to bring you some bread, but then he brings them a huge amount of food and sort of this incremental service so that they won't feel too put upon, but he does want to overwhelm them to feel so welcome, to be able to eat. I mention this because the next thing that happens, which is the beginning for today, this was all commentary on last week, look at Pasuk Tet, and you'll note in your Chumash you probably have some strange dots on the second word in the Pasuk. These dots are not a printer's error. They appear in the Sefer Torah as well. Vayomru elav aye Sarah ishtacha vayomer hinei va'ohel. the angels, again, just as people, if we take that line, there was another view, recall, the Bechor Shor, of Yosef Bechor Shor, the Ralbag, and one of the opinions in the, no, there's those two. They hold that really these guests were actually human beings. They were Nevi'im, they were Shlichei Hashem, but they weren't angelic per se. They just came because they had a message to bring, in which case the fact that they ate would be obvious. Also, if they are just human beings, then their question really makes sense. They really don't know the answer. So they're sitting and eating, and Avram Avinu is standing over them. They're under a tree. Avram is presumably facing them, and it sounds like the tent must be behind them. We're going to find out in Pasuk Yud that that's true, but look at Pasuk Tet. Vayomru elav ayeh sarishtach vayomer hinei va'ohel. Why do they ask him that question? And if you believe that they're malachim, again, the majority view for Chazal is that these were malachim. The question is just, did Avram Avinu know or not? Right? There is a view in Chazal that actually contra Rashi, or the ambiguity in Rashi, that clarifies. Avram knew these were malachim. He was told by Hashem, I'm coming to visit you. You think no one wants to come see you? I'm going to come see you. So Karen, you're asking the best question. Why, in fact, did they ask? The story would have flowed without that. Exactly. They could have just been eating and munching, and that's the question. They could have been eating and munching, and then they could have skipped to Pasuk Yud. In verse 10, Vayomer, Shov ashuv elecha ka'itcha v'nei ve'en l'sara ishtecha v'sara shomat petach ha'ol v'hu acharav. And also the fact that it is Sarah hears it, and he is behind her. He is behind her. It is behind her. It's unclear what's the pronoun, and it's behind this or that. It doesn't on the face of it add up. And as Shelley's pointing out, and quite accurately so, we moved from the singular to the plural in verse 9. Pasuk Tet. They said, in the plural, they said, where is she? And he answered, presumably it's Abraham, answered, behold, she's in the tent. But then one of them spoke and said, we're going to come back. I'm going to come back next some other time. We'll have to see inside in a minute. And behold, there'll be a son to your wife, Sarah. And Sarah can hear this from the entryway of the tent. And hu acharav. And it's not clear what does that mean. He is behind her. He is behind it, rather. It is behind it. It's not clear. Let's learn it inside now. Go to a little bit of a deeper level. First of all, why was that question and answer necessary? Why the signaling? So where is Sarah? It seems like it's an odd question. By the way, did you notice that they knew her name? If they're Stam travelers, they never saw Avram Avinu before. They're sitting eating food, and then they just ask innocently, so where's Sarah, your wife? Excuse me, how do you know my wife's name? A simple question.
Rabbi, huh? That's not so. It's very possible that they had a reputation for hospitality, and the names were known.
Yechol liot. Don't forget, if that's his reputation for hospitality with these wayfarers, then when they stop by, there doesn't seem to be any name recognition. Although you're right, it could be. It could be.
And then they're just being polite.
Right. Well, clearly there's some politeness going on here, right? There's some politeness going on, right? If you look at Rashi points out, Nakod al Ayob sheba elav. On the word elav, they said to him. Now, I don't think it means they said as a chorus. It means one of them representing the three of them sort of said. There's dots on the letters Aleph, Yud, and Vav of the word elav. V'tanya Rabbi Shimon Ben Elazar Omer Kol Makom Shaktav Rabalak Nakuda. Whenever there's more letters without dots, so in that case, Atadori Shaktav, then you can explain that which is written, the letters without the dots. Vikan, but here Hanakuda Rabba Alaktav, there are more dots than there are the dots are on the majority of the letters. So Atadori Hanakuda, you can learn something from or derive something from the letters with the dots. And this tells us, this is quoting from the Medrash Rabbah, Sha'af l'Sarah sha'alu ayo Avraham. They asked Sarah, where is Avraham? Which transforms this question. I mean, they're talking to Avraham. So they turn to Sarah, who in the reading of the Medrash is there, and they asked her, where is Avraham? Lamadnu, says Rashi, quoting the Gemara, Sheyishal Adam b'achsanya shelo leish al ha'isha uleisha al ha'ish. We learned that a man should ask, a person who's a guest, should ask the host to ask the husband about the wife and the wife about the husband, how they're doing. The Bava Metzia Omrim, Yodim hayom malachei ashar tsar yimenu heichan haita. The Gemara says, Rashi quotes, they knew exactly where she was. Ela lahodia shitznua haita. They wanted to make known that she is a person who is modest. She doesn't just show up outside. Kedei lechavva al baila, in order to endear her to her husband. What's amazing here is that somehow the malachim came to their marriage therapists. Not that Khalil was anything wrong between the two, between Avram and Sarah. What can be done to enhance their relationship? So I'll ask him, how's she doing? And I'll ask her, how's he doing? They're all in the room. There's not like, right? They're all there. In other words, according to Rashi, everybody's actually in front of everybody else. It's not like it's a mystery where, oh, we don't really know where she is. They knew because they were malachim, but they also knew, according to this, because they're all there. And according to this, in a very subtle way, there's actually a dialogue going on with Sarah Yimenu. Yeah, you have to ask, why isn't it in the Pshat? It's a good question. But at least as far as the way Rashi sees it, there is some kind of a dialogue going on where the malachim are trying to bring Avram and Sarah together. Not that they were at loggerheads, but to endear one to the other. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, bracha, in order to give her the cup of blessing. Whether it's literally a cup or whether proverbially they want to pass over the cup of blessing to her. Regardless, the point is they're handing over to her the bracha, the kos shel bracha, so they want to know where she is. Want to locate her. In the first instance, in Rashi, the first quote, it's really about trying to bring the two people together. So you ask about this one and that one. In the second rendering, it's in order to bestow the bracha upon her, so they want to know where she is. She is the object of the bracha. Now, complicating matters before we go any further into this mix, we need to jump back to the end of chapter 17. So if you open up the end of chapter 17, you will recall that there's actually already a conversation between Hashem and Avraham Avinu. And that in this conversation, we already learn in verse 15 and onward, we learn a number of pieces of information. V'omer Elokim el Avraham, Sarai ishtacha, lo tikra et shema Sarai, ki Sarah shma. Uveirachti ota v'gam natati mimena lecha bein, uveirachtia v'haita legoyim malchei amim mimena yiyu. Vayipol Avraham al panav, vayitzchak, vayomer bilibo, haleven mea shana yivaled, v'im Sarah habat tishim shana teled. Vayomer Avram Ela Elokim Lishmali Chalafanecha, etc., etc., etc. Right? We learned about Yishmael there, but verse 21, Ve'et Briti Akim et Yitzchak asher ter lechasar lamoed hazeh b'shana acheret, and that's it. So in this little section, in chapter 17, we learned some important things. One, that Sarai became Sarah. Look in Parshat Vayera, she's just called Sarah. Number two, that Hashem tells Avraham that his wife is going to have a bracha. What's the bracha? You're going to have a child from Sarah Imenu. Avinu laughs, and Hashem tells him, yes, there's going to be a child. Yeah? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped Pasuk Yud Tet. It's coming for later, but Elokim aval Sarai ishtacha yoledet lechabein v'karata et shemo Yitzchak. So we have to bookmark that for when we get to chapter 21. We're only up to 18. When we get to chapter 21, and 100 years from now, in Parak Chaf Aleph, we're going to see that actually they name him Yitzchak, and that Avram Avinu is laughing over here, and Sarah Yimenu is laughing, right? We're going to have that. We're coming to that now. But who actually decided that his name should be Yitzchak? Not the parents. It says here Hashem. Yeah, Hashem said that's what it's going to be. So Avram seems to know this news. Sarah doesn't know the news. Now we open up our parsha and we find out, oh, Hashem is bringing these malachim in order to bring this news to Avram and Sarah, but Avram already knows the information. N'est-ce pas? Avram Avinu already heard it. He heard it in Perek Yud Zayin. So why is he hearing it again in Perek Yud Chet? The malachim are coming. They're really coming, not to tell him, of course, but to give the Besorah to Sarah Imenu, which begs the question. Want to fill in the blank? What's the question? It's like begs the question. If Avram knows the information, and now Hashem send malachim to go talk to Sarah Imenu and tell her the information.
Obviously, they're not talking to each other.
Yeah. Why didn't Avram just tell her the news? Right? And then the way that the malachim introduce it, they're talking to Avram. So, where's Sarah, your wife? And Avram answers, behold, she's in the tent. But it's strange. Very strange, in fact, that there could be some kind of idea here that there wasn't going to be a communication between them.
Maybe it's got something to do with Yishmael. I mean,
It could.
And I don't know if there's ever a communication.
That Avram Avinu doesn't want to say anything to Sarah Imenu because it has to do with his reluctance about the Yishmael situation. Could be. But this is an open question. We're going to hopefully get to it in the next few minutes, but just to think about it.
Rabbi,
Karen had asked that Avram and Sarah see each other as old people or as younger when the blessing, see each other as old people or as younger when the blessing was bestowed. Right, so we're going to have to come to that about the issue of age. We're coming to that. Someone wanted to speak. Was it Helen? Did I hear you? Go ahead.
yes. Okay, in today's world, in the computer, we all have a role, need to know. To get information based on our job of what we need to know. Now, Sarah, since she's going to have the baby, she certainly has to be on a first-hand need-to-know basis.
That makes sense.
So what's the question here? I mean, she's the primary person who has to do this baby.
Yeah.
Why
but
should she be on a need-to-know basis?
100%. But Avram Avinu already knows the information from the end of Parshat Lech Lecha. A few days earlier, God told him, Avraham, listen to me. You're going to have a son from Sarah Imenu. By the way, her name is Sarah, not Sarai. And also, you're going to have a baby. Wow. So wait, Avram's too busy. He didn't happen to mention, Sarah, here's the shopping list. Here's a few other things. By the way, your name is Sarah, now not Sarai. And also, you're going to have a baby. This should have been like dancing, but he didn't say it to her. Why not?
So why should she get secondhand information on something so important? Why should she get it from the primary source?
Okay.
She's the number informant in that case.
Okay. So this is already part of the solution. The Ramban hints to this idea. And I have a colleague, Rabbi Shalom Baum, who's very, very into this idea based on the Ramban. I have to give him credit. He says, you look in the Ramban, you can see there, and other Mefarshim, but you see it there particularly later on in the Parshim, Pasuk Tedvav, that you see that Sarah Imenu had an independent relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And she deserved to hear it directly from Malachim. She didn't have to hear it just from Avraham. Now, some of the Mefarshim say, pardon?
She heard about Hagar, right? Wasn't she the one who was, So different messages come first to different.
Yeah, but the idea here is that actually the message is going to come, this information came to her in a direct manner. It's true. Avram could have just told her, by the way, it's not like it was 20 years earlier, right? The reason why this story is happening now is, just back it up, Avram was sitting in front of his tent 3 days after his Brit Milah. He had the Brit Milah 3 days earlier, right after HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, here's what's going to happen. I'm making a covenant with you. Here's the sign of the covenant. And by the way, you're going to have a son from your wife, Sarah. And some of the Mefarshim say, Avram is just involved in the mitzvah. He's got to do the Brit Milah. How do you tell someone something that sounds very, very strange? Now, Sarah Imenu is a great tzaddiket. We know what's going to happen next. She laughs, and they say, no, I didn't laugh. You did laugh. And it's very hard to understand. We're going to read it inside in a minute. But the point here is the Malachim are coming to tell Sarah Imenu because she is an individual who has an independent relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And she's on a high spiritual level. The Malachim are coming for her. Remember, there's 3 Malachim. One is to heal Avraham. One is to destroy Estom. and one is to tell Sarah the news.
So why didn't they
Shoshi, go
tell?
ahead.
Why
Wait
didn't
one
they tell?
second. Wait, Shoshi was first. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You had your hand up. Go.
Why didn't they tell her
Debbie, you're next.
directly? It says V'sara Shamaz Pesach HaOhel. They didn't come to the Ohel and tell her directly. She's
Yeah.
in the back.
Yeah.
She hears it.
So Rashi wants us to realize that the etiquette, the protocol of tznius in that time is the woman doesn't just come out of her tent just like that. So they want to hear to get the message. They're asking, where is she? Now, they knew exactly where she was. And according to Rashi, again, it's based on the Gemara. Actually, they talked to her directly. But the Torah doesn't want to record it this way because it seems like then she's coming out of the house to greet them. It wasn't done in those days. She doesn't go outside. Had they come into her house, that's her domain. But to go outside, they're under a tree. But Rashi wants you to know, there was a dialogue. They did say to her, so where's Avraham? Now, he's standing right there. She's right there. The point is, though, l'chav v'al to endear. Do you see he's here? How is he? How is she? Oh, they're like making a shidduch between these two, like newlyweds. But look at how it's structured, and that's the point. That's when they say it. Vayomer shov ashuvei lecha ke'etcha v'hinei vein l'sar yishtecha. They want her to hear it as the echo of what they're saying directly to Avram Avinu. Now, Avram had already heard it before. This is really not news to him. But they say it in such a way as if the men, again, remember, I don't want to go too close to this issue, but remember that when Avram and Sarah go down to Mitzrayim, she gets kidnapped by Paro. Coming up, unfortunately, is going to be the thing with Avimelech, right? So this is like how the culture was. So you don't just stop, the wife just comes out, the three men sitting there, it's just not done. If they were invited to the house, that was one thing, but they couldn't go into the house for various reasons. They didn't. We talked about some of that last time. Had to do with the Brit Milah, had to do with this, that. They were outside. So they want her to hear. And the Besora is coming, but we just heard last Parsha that Avram just got it 3 days earlier. The point here is it's in Sarah's presence that Avram Avinu hears it. And it's like the two of them are hearing the news at the same time. Right? So, now, part of it is there was a question about whether Avram Avinu receiving this promise from Hashem, maybe the promise was only for him, and he wasn't supposed to tell Sarah. There's also some of the Mefarshim want to point that out. Maybe he shouldn't have told her. That's why he didn't tell her. He didn't have permission. It's only if the Navi is told, Ko Amar Hashem, go tell Daber el Bnei Yisrael, something like that, Daber el Sarah. He wasn't told to convey it. Therefore, he didn't convey it. But what happened instead? Hashem decided, I want you, Avram Avinu, to realize how special Sarah Imenu is. I'm sending these malachim to your house for the express purpose of giving the Besorah to you that you already know, but now the two of you are going to hear it as a couple. Why didn't he hear it as a couple before? Avram was Nish Gemalt. He didn't have a bris yet. Once he had the news, then he did the Brit Milah. Good, now he's going to have the covenant. But he's not going to have the covenant by himself. The point of the covenant is the Jewish family. It's Avram and Sarah. So they come, they endear one to the other. Then they give the announcement, and and she hears. Sarah Shomat. The point was she was supposed to hear. What is V'hu Acharav? Rashi writes, Hapetach haya achar hamalach. The opening of the tent was behind the angel. So now I want you to just picture this scene. I'll take comments and questions in a minute. Just imagine this, based on the way Rashi sees it. Okay, you're looking down from the sky. Here's what you see. You see on the right side. I'm making this up, but it's basically the structure. Avram Avinu is on the right-hand side. Then right to the left of Avram Avinu, you're looking down. You see a tree. Under that tree are three men sitting, leaning up against the tree. They're eating. They're facing Avraham, who's facing them. Behind Avraham, past Avraham, off to the left. Again, you're looking from right to left. What's there? A tent. Whose tent? The tent of Sarah Imenu. So the three malachim are facing Avram Avinu. They've had some dialogue with Sarah, but they're facing Avraham. They're sitting, he's standing. And they announced to him, the head of them, if you will, by Yomer, it's in the singular. So right away, the Chazal say, well, who was it? It was that's the Malach who was the one to give the Besora to Sarah Imenu. So what are the other two doing there? Is a big shaila. It's like they're a Bezdin of Malachim. Yep. They're telling Avram Avinu, now that you did the Brit, we came to visit you. We're representing a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And what do they say to Avraham? She's going to have a child. And what's behind the Malach? The tent. And who's standing at the doorway of the tent? Sarah Imenu. So who's standing facing each other from the right side to the left side with the three men in between? Avraham is facing Sarah. You see? And the three men in between on the ground. And We'll come next year. I'm gonna come back. You're gonna have a baby. Yeah. What is Sarah Imeinu doing? What? And we're gonna get to that in a minute. Karen, go ahead. And I think there was a Debbie or Rosalie. Someone was trying to speak before, but I couldn't see.
Me, Debbie. Yeah.
Debbie. Debbie and then Karen. Sorry, Debbie first, then Karen.
So I just want to validate what you said about the level that Hashem held Sarah at, because in several shiurs, Rabbi Moshe Soloveitchik spoke on this, and I'm sure it came down in his family as well, in terms of where definitely a separate relationship with Hashem, and where he even held her vis-a-vis Abraham at times.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot actually in the family. That's true. Rav Soloveitchik in his book in Abraham's Journey, he makes a lot of this. It's also in this beautiful in the Chumash, Mesorat Harav Chumash, I think it's called Mesorat Harav. Yeah, the gray silver volume. So in there also the covenantal role of Sarah Imeinu. It's also in reflections of the Rav. Look in Parshat Chai Sarah. As soon as Sarah Imeinu passes away, Avram Avinu accomplishes almost nothing. All he does after Sarah Imeinu dies is number one, he buries her. Number two, he gets a shidduch for his son to continue the Masorah.
Exactly.
There's no more. Hashem doesn't come to him anymore and tell him he's another mission. It doesn't say he got up and he called out the name of Hashem. Because without Sarah, Avram couldn't function. He couldn't do what he needed to do because the covenantal role of Sarah Imeinu was so absolutely crucial. So I like what you're saying, David. It's exactly in line with that. And it's that, and then you see that here, right? And that's why. Where is this one? Where's that one? You know, Kirei L'chava al Baila, and there she's behind. But really, Avram looks up from the three men and he sees the beautiful Sarah, and Sarah's looking back at him.
And it's confirmed in terms of how the Soloveitchik line, including the Rav, I don't want to use where they hold women in general.
Oh yeah, well, yes.
Their wives,
agreed.
their daughters, it reflects not only in the Parsha and the Shir, but in the actuality of where they hold women.
Well said. Thank you. And you see it, by the way, in the various expressions.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Very good point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen? Unmute. Go ahead.
From 9:32 this morning. It's it's okay. It's still a question. I like Hallmark movies. I like romance. So what I'm envisioning, I wonder whether there's a midrash to this point, that here you have these malachim, whether they're men or malachim, they're getting this so that Abraham and Sarah are looking at each other at the time this bracha is happening.
Great.
Okay, so I'm wondering, when they're looking at each other, do the years melt away? If it was in a movie, would you have the two of them melting back to their younger selves? And that's why Sarah isn't laughing. She's like, wow.
Good. I love it. It's great. It was just as relevant now as 9:32, and I apologize that you're waiting so long. I have these little icons in front of me, but I can't see always who's waving and whatnot. Next time, send me a chat with an exclamation point. I'll get it. I'll get the message. I get it bashed over the head with it. Okay, so all of this brings us to the reflection right after this, and Pasuk Yud Aleph, and Karen, to your point, that by the way, V'Avram v'Sara zikenim ba'im bayamim. We would say today they're not exactly spring chickens right now. Chadal liot l'Sara orach kanashim. Orach kanashim. Excuse me. It's really on the nashim. She doesn't have the way of women. She's postmenopausal over here. It's not like she's really having a child. So vatitzchak Sarah, against that backdrop, vatitzchak Sarah b'kirbah leimor achreiv loti haytali edna vadoni zakein. Right. So right away it describes that she laughed within herself, saying, I'm old. How could it be that I'm again going to be young, i.e., right, to have a baby? And my master is very old, meaning Avram is, after all, he's 99. Rashi here also, the idea that she said this, but then in the next pasuk, Vayomer Shemal Avraham, Lama zet tzachaka Sarah lemor af umnam eleid va'ani zakanti. Hashem says to Avram, why is Sarah laughing, saying, is this really going to be happening? Right? And I am old. Now, that's not what she said patently a pasuk earlier. So again, Rashi, Shina hakatuv mipnei shalom, another ethic of the household. It says here, Rashi, quoting from the Gemara Bab Metzia, that the Torah Davka wants you to show that even Hashem will change something ever so slightly in order to keep the peace. Shaharehi amra va'adoni zakein. She really said, and my master is old. But it got switched to, and I am old. Yeah? And the idea here that you see the Shalom Bayit encouraged and Shalom Bayit sustained. These are both aspects of work that are required. Even HaKadosh Baruch Hu was willing to change things up a little bit to keep the peace between them. All right? And then Hayipalei me'Hashem davar lamoed ashuv elecha ke'et chaya u'l'sara bein. Is anything too wondrous for Hashem that I can't do this? I.e., you think I won't be able to do this? Lamoed means at the time, the operative time. I'm going to come back to you, and Sarah will have a son. That's the end of the Aliyah. That's the end of the section, but it's not the end of it. There's one more pasuk. Vatichachesh Sarah lemor lo tzachakti ki yarea vayomer lo ki tzachakt. So Sarah countermands, contradicts whatever was just said, and she says, "I did not laugh, for I was afraid. I was nervous." Something like that. Rather, I was nervous. And Avraham says to her, "No, you did laugh."
Rabbi?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
It's Phil.
Hi, Phil.
So Sarah laughs, and Hashem says to Avraham. He doesn't say anything to Sarah.
Right. And you're waiting, right? You'd think like, if this is an issue with Sarah, why not say it directly to Sarah Imenu, right?
Yes.
Which is strange. Right?
Yes.
I am so troubled by these couple of psukim, and I'm not sure I've ever come up with a satisfactory answer until today to understand what exactly transpired here. I'll tell you the best I came up with, but I think the question is better than the answer in a certain way. First of all, if you go with the view of the Rambam, then what's going on over here in this whole section? This is going to get a little mind-bending if you go with the Rambam. The Rambam, for those who weren't in the first session on Parshat Vayera, and remember that the Ramban said, you cannot listen to this and you cannot believe it. You're not allowed to believe this. The Ramban wrote that against the Rambam, who everywhere, he calls him the Rav, like we say, Rabbi Solich, the Rav, the Rebbe, the Rav. In the Ramban's base matters, the Rav was the Rambam. But this thing, no way. What did the Rambam say? This whole thing is while Avram Avinu is asleep. Now, if that's true, oh, Rochelle, you raise your hand. Give me 1 second. If that's true, then what's going on here in the internal process? It's getting mind-bending, right? Avram is in his dream, involved Sarah, Yishmael, everybody's involved. They're helping their guests. They give the food to the guests. They're sitting under the tent, Avram standing. And in the dream, Sarah Imenu is laughing. Who had laughed previously when Hashem spoke to him in his earlier dream before the Brit Milah? Avraham. Now who's laughing? The projection of Avraham and Sarah Imenu, the same laugh. But now it's not that she's literally laughing, it's that in his mind. And we're left with another problem. But then how did she hear the news? So in this rendering of the Rambam, and I didn't look it up in the Morris, so I don't remember if he actually says it this way. Okay, so in this rendering, yeah, Avram did have to tell Sarah the whole thing, and she wasn't in the story really. It was really Avram's projection. And therefore, the whole idea that she laughed inside herself is the projection of Achrev lo ti'ai tali edna v'adon li zakein. And Hashem says to Avraham, why? Because it's Avraham's, I don't want to say dreamscape in the sense of a chalom, but chaloimus, but of a nevuah. So he tells him, why did Sarah Imenu laugh in your dream, right? Why is that happening? So, right, why did she say to herself? And Hashem changes the statement back to Avram. He knows what Avram's thoughts are, that Avram projected, that's what Sarah thought. Do you think that Hashem can't do anything? All right, I'm going to come back next week. And then Sarah in Avram's dream. Avram and Sarah, right, they're, shall we say, Bahu Levasar Echad. They're two halves of the same whole. They're like one unit. So again, if you go by the Rambam's view, which again, the Ramban said, what? No, all of this really happened. This isn't the theater of the real. It doesn't say Avram sleeping, doesn't say he laid down, doesn't say he's dreaming, but it would explain a little bit how Sarah was contradicting it. In that rendering, back and forth, it's not Avram and Sarah talking. It's Hashem telling Avraham, no, she really did laugh in your dream because your projection is that she is, yeah? This is kind of mind-bending. I didn't see it written anywhere. It might be totally wrong, but otherwise, it's like I'm trying to figure it out. And in fact, the Ramban's question, Rochelle, give me one more second, but the Ramban's question on these words, Pasuk Tedvav, the Ramban says, Ani tama b'neviyat tzadeket, eitechachesh ba'asher amar Shem lanavi. I'm baffled, basically. I'm surprised with this Nevi'ah. That's Sarah Imenu. She's a righteous person. How could she contradict that which was said, right, that Hashem said to the Navi? V'gam, lama lo hemin lo divrei malach Elokim. Why did she believe it? How could it be she didn't believe it? It's like so strange. V'nira be'ena ki malachim ha'ela nirim ka'anashim ba'al Avram v'hu b'chachmato ikir b'hem u'basri oto shova shuvei lach l'sara bein v'sara shomat v'lo yad ki malach el yonheim. Ramban says she didn't know that they were malachim. These men show up and they're talking to Avraham, and she hears these guests who know her name saying, "Oh, your wife's." Imagine this happening at your table. Oh, they say to another guy. They say to this guy, "Oh, your wife's going to be pregnant. You're going to have a baby within a year." Whoa, who are you? So, according to this rendering, again, the idea is she didn't know. Did Avram know? According to the Ramban, probably. And the reality is that there's like this bafflement about Sarah Imenu. It's like Ramban's question, not my question. How could Sarah say she doesn't believe in God? Of course she believes in God. She doesn't believe in that Hashem could do anything. She believes Hashem could do anything. But the problem is these people said it to her. She didn't get a galut Hashem. So when she hears it, she overhears it, by the way, being said to Avram. It's really intended for her to hear it. But she's, how do I accept this? Okay. First, Rochelle, you had your hand up. And then anyone else who has their hand up, you'll speak after. Okay, go.
Well, you answered the point that I was going to ask about. Abraham had laughed originally, but the other point is sometimes people do laugh out of stress, tension, or shock. So when Sarah said, I wasn't laughing at you or about it, I was laughing because I was surprised.
Surprised, maybe a little bit anxious.
Yeah, then as I'm saying, my point was referring originally, I raised my hand about Abraham had laughed first.
Right. The problem is that the next pasuk, which makes it even more challenging, like to wrap your head around, is that it actually says, she says, I didn't laugh, but rather the issue was I was anxious, like a nervous laugh. But the answer, Vayomer lo kitzachakt. Nope, you did laugh. And that's the end of the story. Then you get to the people got up and they left. Right? We know already enough in our learning. Now, in Thursdays in the Navi class, we're not given every detail of the story in the Torah Shebichtav. We're not, on purpose. So the pieces that are in here, like when you leave you scratching your head, you ask, well, why is it written that way? And does the Medrash fill out a piece of it that's not here? Why wouldn't it be here, right? Shochi, you're quite right. She laughs to herself for no one else to hear. But of course, Hashem hears everything, right? Now, the Chizkuni has another idea, which is a really wild idea, but I didn't make it up. The Chizkuni said it. But here's the sort of the schedule. For reasons someone's got to get that phone. It's ringing, or mute yourself. Okay, I got 2 minutes left. I don't want to be late because I know there's a Navi class some of you have after. So listen, like this. The Chizkuni says, when you look in the Gemara tells us absolutely, we know that on the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, Sarah was remembered by Hashem. Okay? So Rosh Hashanah, she was remembered by Hashem means she was expecting the baby. When was Yitzchak Avinu born? Actually, when did he come into the world? Right? So Yitzchak Avinu was born on the holiday of Pesach. So now do the math from Tishrei until Nisan.
9 months.
It's not even 9 months, though. That's the thing. It's not even 9 months. Right? Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, Shvat, Adar, Nisan. It's 7 months. So trying to figure out like, 7 months have gone by since then, right? So everybody agrees that on Pesach, he's born. The Pesach Nolad Yitzchak, right? You have the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud Amud Bet, going to Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, right? They both maintain that Yitzchak is born on Pesach. If he's born on Pesach and his mother was pregnant with him on some in Tishrei, right? Hashem Pakad et Sarah, it's chapter 21. It's what we read every Rosh Hashanah. We're going to read it. It's coming later in Parshat Vayera. So when did the Malachim come to Avram Avinu's house? The answer is they came on Pesach. I mean, it wasn't Pesach yet, but they came in the month of Nisan. Says the Chizkuni, these psukim that appear here are not psukim that are happening in 5 minutes. They're a description of what happened 6 months after these Malachim came. The Malachim came in the month of Nisan. They said to Avram and Sarah, by next year, you're going to have a baby. When we come back, there'll already be a baby. Then comes Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul. There's no baby. So there's no baby, and she's not expecting a baby. Yeah? So they're still trying to have a baby, and it's still not happening. Says the Chizkuni, and again, it is a wild idea. Comes to the month of Tishrei, and she's already saying, come on, that I'm not going to have a baby, because by the way of nature, it's not going to happen. In other words, there's a delay, again, and you have to ask yourself, okay, Rabbi, so why isn't the timeline written here? I'll grant you, the timeline's not here, but what is here, says the Chizkuni, is that if you use the Gemara's timeline, then watch what happens. They tell her the news. That's the end of verse 12. Verse 11, excuse me. When did she laugh? 6 months later. We still didn't have the baby. But Yitzchak Sarah Bikir Ba'Leimor, it's like Rochelle said before. It's not the laugh that she's so happy and clicking her heels. We're going to have a baby. It's so great. Avram Avinu was laughing. But he pulled up, it says, he fell down. He's like laughing. Oh, amazing, right? But here, it's 6 months later. It's the laugh of, yeah, right, I'm going to have a baby. Because I've been trying another 6 months since those lovely 3 men, quote unquote, came and told us the bracha didn't happen. So, Avraham, why is she laughing and saying, I haven't even had a baby? Is anything past Hashem's ability to do? I'm going to come back. I said I'm going to come back and she's going to have a baby. That's why it repeats again. I'm going to come back at the time. I'm going to come back at the time, same time of the year. Look back at Pasuk, where are we? No. Look at Pasuk number 10, verse 10. The Malach said, the language, Shov ashuv elecha ke'eit chayav v'ini bein l'sarai ishtecha. I'm going to come back next time this year. She's going to have a baby. It doesn't say when she's going to have a baby. The baby's going to be there when I get there next year, when I come back. Okay. Then you get to 2 psukim later. What does Hashem say? Verse 14. Excuse me. A few psukim later. Ashu lamoed ashuv elecha ke'eit chayav l'sarai bein. She's going to have a baby. Now Sarah said, no, I didn't laugh. I didn't mean that that's not possible. Hashem can't do it. I just. Kiyareya. Was Kiyareya? I'm afraid already because 6 months went by and nothing happened. What does Hashem say? No. Right? And you'll say to me, but Rabbi, 6 months went by and the Malachim were still sitting in front of Avram and Sarah. No, that's not what it means. It means the Torah wants to, according to Chizkuni, Torah conveys like this. They said this to her. By the way, just so you know, later on in the story, 6 months later, when the baby had not yet arrived, she was already a little bit despairing. She needed the chizuk. You think I can't do it? Hashem says, I'm going to do it. And by the by, what else happens in the meantime? In the meantime, let me just continue the story. Torah says, give me the rest of the story. The Malachim actually, at that moment, actually got up and kept going. Why is this written over here? Because the story of the Besora to Sarah. The title on this section, according to Chizkuni, is Sarah gets the news she will have a baby. And here's what happened in the interim. 6 months went by and she didn't have the baby yet. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds everybody of this. Here, the people are enslaved for 210 years. Here, Moshe and Aaron come and they say, you're going to get out. Great, we're packing our bags. Well, not yet. We got to go tell Paro. They go tell Paro, and what does Paro say? Fat, get away from me. What happened after that? The slavery got worse. The despair was increased. The people turned back to Moshe and Aaron and they said, are you serious? Are you serious? You brought our hopes up that we're getting out of here? We're not going anywhere. We won't be moving anytime soon, right? We're going to be here for a long time. You know what the Gemara says happened on Rosh Hashanah? On Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish people, the year they were getting out, on Rosh Hashanah, their work was canceled. If you have Shmot in front of you, Sefer Shmot, you have this at the end of Parshat Shmot, where Moshe Rabbeinu is being told by Hashem, don't be so quick that it's never going to happen, right? Don't say it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm going to get them out of here. It's going to take some time, right? The plagues start, and what happens on Rosh Hashanah, the year before they left, right? The Gemara Rosh Hashanah says, and Daf Yud Amud Bet Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, that on Rosh Hashanah the slavery of the Jewish people was canceled. They didn't get out, but the slavery was canceled. What did it mean? The slavery was canceled? It's still there. It means that the moment was pregnant with the impending Geula. The redemption was going to come. And now they have to wait it out from Rosh Hashanah until the following Nisan. A woman needs 9 months to have the baby, not Sari Imenu, because everything is whatever Hashem wants to have happen. Karen pointed out if she was postmenopausal, she would know she was pregnant until she started the show. A few months in, she wouldn't know. Maybe that's why the months don't up. Good point also. There's a big discussion about how you add up the months. My point is, according to Chizkuni, there's a time lag, and the Torah doesn't give you the time lag because the title on the subject is the story of Sari Imenu finding out she's going to have a baby. Well, here's what happened. There were ups and downs in that as well, and she needed the chizuk of it.
Can I just say something?
It doesn't fit with the story of Lot in Sodom, because we're going to get, that'll be right next. But Sodom is going to be destroyed. So therefore, one prophecy that God gives is going to come true. So she wouldn't have gotten upset about this. Avram would have told her about the other business with Sodom. She would have seen that Sodom was destroyed, and she'd be waiting. I don't think, especially if she's such a great tzaddik.
She is a great tzaddik, but the point is, Sodom was destroyed on the same holiday of Pesach. In fact, the way we're going to get there, when we get to the story of Sodom, it's going to say that when they got there, it's going to say that Lot gave them matzot.
Which Pesach, though? Is it this Pesach when the angels come, or is it the next Pesach when you
same Pesach, same day.
Same Pesach, so then therefore she would know that they were destroyed and that one prophecy of God had come true. She'd have faith.
It's not that she not. I mean, the time passed. The time. In other words, you're right, but like she's getting the bracha already. They're not spring chickens. She's 89 years of age. It's like, okay, so now Hashem told it's going to happen. Great. I'm not getting any younger. And the months are passing. Again, you can reject Chizkuni. You could say you don't like it, but that Chizkuni wants to claim that the 6 months had gone by, and therefore she was despairing already. Like, I'm waiting so long already, and he gave me the good news. And not lahavdol. It's exactly what happened. Moshe and Aaron come tell the Jewish people, they're all bowing down. It's unbelievable. We're getting out. It's so wonderful. And then what happens? But there's going to be a little delay. What do you mean a little delay? Hashem's supposed to do it immediately. And even Moshe's asking Hashem, no, you're going to have to wait. Rosalie, go ahead. Rosalie, go ahead.
Yes, what I wanted to say about the naming Yitzchak and everything, later on it says about when Sarah wants to throw out Yishmael because he was mitzachek im Yitzchak. So that tzaddik Kuf is the mocking. So maybe this laughing here is exactly what you said. Yeah, right, it's going to happen. It's almost like a mocking laugh.
It could be. Well, again, there is it seems that there's some kind of criticism of Sari Imenu over here. No? Seems
yeah, right. It's going to, but I'm just saying, but when we see that word, when we see that showish again, it is a negative. It is a mocking. Like,
true,
it's not a good.
True. But the distinction comes in, and that's exactly the point. Rochelle was making this point before. There's laughter and there's laughter. There's the laughter of joy and surprise. There's the laughter of anxiety. There's laughter of mocking. And when Yishmael is going to do it, he's not laughing at everybody else. He's laughing like he's poking fun.
Bad. Okay.
Right? So there's laughter.
Yeah. Rabbi,
we're learning about
Can I throw in one more thing?
Ellen, please, we're way over time, and I want to let people go. So last comment, then we're going to say goodbye. Go ahead.
We're introduced that Yifta is not Korah. And then she gives the job of birthing to Hagar. So she has spent a whole lifetime from a basula to old age being considered an akora.
Right.
Isn't it a lifetime of pattern of habit that she can't believe that she would give birth?
Yes.
That it's such a mind-shattering change.
Yes. Yes.
The first moment we hear about her, Yifta is an akora.
Yeah.
And then the second point is, below yochlu lehismameya. If they had a waiting period, why do they have to make matzah below yochlu lehismameya? What's the big hurry? Why didn't they start preparing mazon beforehand?
Right. It's a good question for Pesach time. I can't answer that now. We don't have that kind of time today, you and me. But but your point is well taken. I appreciate it. And we'll have to get back to it, I guess, next week. We pick it up again.
Okay.
It was lovely to learn with
Okay.
everyone. I wish you a great day, a great week. Shavua Tov. Let's hopefully hear good news in the new week. And Mitzvah Shem will resume next Monday.